Hey guys, George from AGORACOM come to you live from the Sheridan Center in Toronto at the Police Innovation Showcase. With me, Chell. I don't have to make the introduction, CEO of Draganfly, the most cutting edge drone solutions company in the world. You're here as a keynote speaker. Welcome, man. Great to see you.
Thanks to have me.
Right.
It's always good to see you. Always.
We're always doing this on Zoom,
Yeah.
but we're doing it in person.
Yeah, amazing.
Thrilled. How to go this morning? How were you received this morning by a pretty elite group in there?
George, thanks so much for taking the time to come and do this. It's always such an honor to hang with you. The event here today was spectacular. Public safety, police services in particular have always been a key market for us. They've always treated us incredibly kind and are leaders in their field. And drone innovation is in public safety is one of those things that we're incredibly passionate about because it's one of the areas that has the greatest amount of impact. So certainly drones will impact, probably every aspect of every industry, but as it relates specifically to public safety, you just see, the results of it, the lives that are saved, how things are impacted, the costs that are saved, the public safety that's increased. It's very meaningful work to be able to do, and it's always an incredibly receptive audience because these people are here to serve, and so it's the type of customer that you want to be great for.
You're getting this great reception here. I've always said in our interviews, I think there are, 1,000 applications for everything that you guys are capable of doing. How are you going to handle that demand that keeps coming every time you show applications, every time you show solutions? And you have companies come and say, we want that. How are you going to handle that growth?
Yeah, well, what's really interesting about what's happening right now is the 6 applications that we talked about today are applications that are actually in use. So even 2 years ago at this type of a conference, we would have been talking about what's coming and what's going to be cool. So I touched a bit about on that today, and what's coming is really sci-fi. But what's actually being implemented today and where the demand is coming from, which we'll touch base on in a second, are things that are actually happening today. So using drones as first responders, using drones for forensic investigation, these are things that are real and happening today. And so the questions that are coming up are they aren't about well, theoretically, when could that happen? And what about this regulation and that regulation? It's actually okay, what models should we be using? What software? How does this interface with, this workflow software? It's becoming very tactical and practical, which leads to the demand. We always like to be leading edge, but we're obviously very, very focused on revenues. And so we have incredible revenue visibility. If there were multiple Draganflies out in the market right now, none of them or all of them would not be able to keep up with the demand. And so we have a lot of focus on building out capacity this last year. And it's the primary reason that we did an IPO was so that we had the capital to build out capacity. So we opened up our new plant here in June in Burnaby, British Columbia. And then we slowed down our plant in Saskatoon because it's going through an entire new upgrade, actually a move and a remodel and a huge expansion there. It'll be back up to speed in August. And so what we're really expecting, what we will see in Q3 is the beginning of that hockey stick curve.
Because you know your pipeline.
We know our pipeline.
So I'm assuming when you say that, and I'm glad you bring that up because I think it's important for shareholders to know that you had to kind of slow down capacity at Saskatoon just to get it retooled. But you've got, I'm assuming, AGORACOM and ABC and all these companies are saying, Cam, when can you start building for me?
There's about 6 variables in the market that really led to the decisions that we had to do, and when we were going to upgrade plants and bring new products online. So first of all was the regulation around BV loss about 2.5 years ago, and then even 3 weeks ago the announcement that BV loss is being streamlined. And so that's brought a whole other raft of customers to the table that are now pushing for these particular products to get into market sooner or later. But the reality is, the very small drones that are out there aren't necessarily applicable to a lot of BV loss applications. So we had to bring new products online at the same time that we're bringing new plants online over the last 18 months. And while at the same time managing customer expectations and building up that
it's a tightrope.
It's a complete tightrope.
And you want to make shareholders happy at the same time because you want to grow revenue.
Yeah.
But you've seen this before with other great growth companies, right? They kind of have to plateau while they kind of gear up for the next phase. So it seems like you have a pretty good confidence in what's coming.
If you build a great product and you get the pre-orders, right? Which we don't advertise or give a lot of guidance around. Then we know we have predictability around what we can build, and it's easier to budget. It's easier to build your product, roadmap around. Yeah, I kind of liken it to playing golf. You can go out and shoot a great score, or you can go out and play golf to become a great golfer. And Draganfly wants to be a great golfer. So we're not out to get the best score today. We're out to be out to be a great company, which means that we're building and working on certain things like, our swing tempo or putting the fundamentals in place so that we can meet the demand that we already have proven, right? So that's really the goal. So, so we had a flat Q2. And that's because, we had a new plant coming online. Yeah. As that plant came online, we brought Saskatoon down. Now Saskatoon will be, coming back up into August. And as we go into this current Q, we're gonna see our revenues, kind of maintain where they're at. But Q3 is where that business, it's a really exciting time.
In another life, I've got a family food business, and we work with some of the biggest agricultural companies in the world. And even they got to bring down plants, a lot of time and development in order to upgrade them, so they got a flat line in order to just accelerate the revenue and capacity fall. Yeah. So this is a good problem. This is a good typical problem of great growth companies. You're gearing up to be ready.
The part of this to understand is that we're a true pure manufacturing organization. So it's not like we're bringing parts in and assembling them and you just put more workbenches in. I mean, this is workflow. This is type certification of aircraft. This is injection molding. It's the torque of every screw has to be measured. This isn't. This is true manufacturing at a level where you've got to build in capacity in order to meet demand, and there's a lag there. Now, what is interesting?
Once you get that right, then you can scale.
But that's your moat too, right? That's also
because I can't come George Drones can't suddenly come and say, I'm going to do what Cam's doing.
I can say with every bit of confidence that there are very, very, very few North American drone manufacturers that are pure and true real manufacturers, right? There's assemblers and there's competition out there, but even if there was, nobody can meet the demand right now anyway for the next number of years.
So this isn't costing you, right? Like you have to defer or you have to hold off a customer, GeorgeCom, but as much as they want their drones today, they understand they don't have to wait till Q3 or Q4. They don't
have a lot of choice out there, but they have choice around assemblers and things like that. But if they're going to build scalable platforms, right? And most of these customers are large government type of organizations or Fortune 500s with fleets or massive infrastructures they need to inspect or that type of thing. So you got to build for that type of a customer as well. Now, the other thing that we have been supplementing this in with, and we'll see significant growth happen as well, is in our services and our training business. So we've got some really exciting announcements coming up around different services that we'll be providing to these organizations. And some of them have had to default to that because they're like, can you just, we can't train the drone pilots fast enough, and or we can't get the equipment fast enough. Can you just fly those services and manage the data for us? So we're seeing a really nice increase in that pipeline. And then also just recently announced as a part of our training services is we just signed the entire Ministry of the Interior of the Ukraine to train all of their drone pilots going forward. So that's Border Patrol, National Guard, Special Forces, the police services, emergency. So over 1,000 new pilots being trained a year in Ukraine. And it's the same thing. They need, even if they had the drones, the demand for the uses of the drones, they don't have enough pilots for them. So we're kind of getting hit on all sides here. So it will crescendo for us. Listen, it's after 20 some years, we're finally at the right place at the right time. There's no skill. It was just persistence so far.
Yeah. You're early, but now you're there. How much has your Ukraine work helped in terms of third-party validation to the world that Draganfly can deliver to you what you need? Because look what we're doing in the Ukraine.
I'm so glad you're. So we went to the Ukraine because we needed to, because we were supposed to.
I know how deeply passionate you feel about this.
We were supposed to be there, right? Yeah. That's the first reason we went there. The second reason we went there is because we thought that there was a commercial opportunity, right? And so we've been working to capitalize on that commercial opportunity, always underlying that it's the right thing to do, first and foremost. But the third thing that's come out of it that we did not plan on, did not think about, didn't have the foresight or the insight to recognize was, quite frankly, the credibility or the marketability, the marketing that it's created for us. So when we're working now with defense customers around the world, NATO defense customers around the world, we can say, listen, we have crews on the ground doing demining. We're working with, in my opinion, the best drone pilots in the world are in Ukraine right now because they've got the most amount of experience in terms of small UAS systems. And we've got the tactical experience, and we're applying that into our data systems and into our AI systems and into the lessons and the learnings about our airframes and things like that. When we speak with a customer, we have credibility.
You're way ahead. Let's just say that puts you way ahead of everybody, of almost everybody else.
Yeah, right? Hopefully we continue to take the attitude that we don't know everything, but when we do present the ideas or the concepts or the learnings, they're based in real world fact. And we've learned more, there's no way we could gain that experience. It's been an absolute incredible experience.
Going on to an intangible for a second, because I saw how emotional you got. It's not the first time you've shown that emotion, because that's how much you care. But at some point, will Draganfly shareholders who love how the company is operating, will we get a chance to maybe get some metrics on how many lives have we saved? How many people did we help? Because that would be a really proud moment for all of us. And I know you get choked up when we talk, because you've probably seen it firsthand, right? But just how much of an impact have we had on civilization, just on humans, outside of the income statement and balance sheet?
Even the bigger lesson for us in that is the impact that we get to be a part of a community that's doing the right thing for the right reasons. So for sure those stories will come out. For sure those metrics and that data will come out.
At some point.
But at 100%.
How proud are you? Like, you and your team internally, you guys must have a sense. How do you feel at night sometimes when you're watching the news on TV and you say, hey, we're helping there. Our company, our shareholders, everyone's invested, everyone's on the team. How does that make you guys feel?
Blessed, humbled, completely humbled. I mean, these people are losing family members every day. So when you put it in perspective, it's, we're not doing enough. But we'll do everything that we can. And it's going to translate into value for our shareholders. It is translating into value.
Yeah, the third party validation is something I saw right away. When you first announced Ukraine, there's no guarantee that we could actually deliver. It's a new theater, it's never been done before. It could go really right or it could go really wrong, or somewhere in between. Obviously it's gone really right. And now that that's happened, I mean, as a business guy who understands marketing and business development, I mean, that's just an insurmountable competitive advantage that you have over almost everybody else on the planet.
It is. And so as we translate that into the work that we're doing, in India, or the work that we're doing with our NATO partners, it's we bring a lot to the table now, a lot more than we did before.
What kind of message can you give the shareholders in terms of how confident you are in your visibility? Look, all CEOs have to be optimistic, right? We all have to be optimistic, but in terms of your visibility, what you see, the inbound calls, the biz dev discussions taking place, how do you feel about Draganfly's future in the next 12, 18, 24 months and how it's shaping up?
I've had the good fortune, absolute privilege to be involved in, 2 or 3, and maybe even arguably more, but, a solid 3 kind of $1 billion, plus, rides, right? Up and to the right, rides in terms of, revenue and valuation and things like that in the private and the public markets. Not all successful. I've also done some, worked in some projects that haven't been successful, but I've never seen anything that's going to do what this is going to do. And maybe a part of that is because it's so meaningful. Like, listen, building cloud computing companies in the late 90s and the early 2000s, or payment companies, and those were really cool. But to this is transformational, and it's beyond meaningful, and it's a deep passion in everybody's heart. So I would be very disappointed if we're not multi-billion-dollar valuations and hundreds of millions in revenue coming. You hope. I mean, there's no guarantees, and lots could go wrong.
You're not making up, but look, you've done it before.
Yeah.
You're not pie in the sky. I get that. Do people really have an understanding of the role drones are going to play in a positive way in our lives in the next 5 to 10 years? Like, what can you tell everyone at home about, hey, George, hey, viewer at home, this is how drones are going to be integrate into your life?
All I can suggest is that even a few years ago, I mean, I was really excited about the drone industry, but more, I love the engineering and I love the tech and I love the potential impact. But what I see now happening is the transformational effect it will have on society. So as an example, there's a huge movement in what's called, home hospital care. Now that's very different than home health care. It's very different than home hospice care. This is home hospital care. So your hospital is in your house. And this is being championed by the biggest medical organizations in the world for obvious reasons.
Because if there's not enough hospital rooms,
not enough hospitals, not enough costs, not enough aging populations, all of these types of things. And because of things like telecommunication and bandwidth and the dropping costs of equipment and those type and telemedicine, that is now becoming possible. Well, there's 4 pillars that really make home hospital care, which is a massive transformational economic and societal shift. There's 4 pillars to it. Well, one of the pillars is drones, right? This whole thing could not happen if you didn't have drones. And I didn't really understand that until somebody who's
how
very...
would a drone play a role, for example,
so delivering painkillers, delivering pharmaceuticals, getting vaccines, immediately getting tests back and forth. So they don't have all the testing equipment. So somebody needs to do a blood test. Some of that can be done at home, some of it can't. So there's other body fluid tests. It's got to get to the hospital like in minutes or in half an hour, not 4 hours or the next day or 2 days later.
Or I'm too old, it's too difficult for me to get to the hospital. You deliver the diagnostics, my kid somehow takes some samples, whatever, it goes right back,
that's
I never thought about that role,
and that's
right?
one that's
awesome.
one and it's just like 100 things that show up, and these are now being championed by organizations that are much bigger than Draganfly will ever be. I mean, these are like big thinking organizations that are putting hundreds of millions of dollars behind these initiatives, and things like drones or the data that drones collect, whether it's delivery or data or whatever the case is, or the AI that it collects, that's the impact that this is going to have. I really did not have a clear aspect or grasp of this even a couple of years ago until what we see happening today.
That question that you gave us just that one example.
That's just one.
I'm sure there are 100, but just that alone got everyone at home thinking now, like, wow, I didn't think that. Devil's advocate, I got to ask you this question though. So there's no doubt that drones are going to play a monster role in our lives going forward. Little doubt that Draganfly is going to be a significant player in that space.
We hope so. Yeah.
But how do you look? You've got growth issues right now, good growth issues. But you've got to
nonetheless growth issues.
How are you going to gear up for that? 2 years, 3 years, 5 years from now.
We'll have our two plants completed here by the end of August. We also have a facility in Texas, which is our air facility, and we have a facility in Sarasota. But with our 2 plants in particular, they're now completely modularized, so that the work that we can do there, we can simply port them into contract manufacturing facilities. But just because of all your ISO certifications and your type certifications and everything you have to do, you have to be able to demonstrate every new little change. Like, I mean, an extra half turn on a screw type of thing.
Wow.
Has to be demonstrated in your plant under total supervision, total data security. We also have classification issues, and not issues, but things we have to be aware of. And so all of that stuff needs to be managed here before you can export it out and then demonstrate that you can duplicate it. Our 2 current plants, when they're both online, can internally take us up to manufacturing of somewhere in the neighborhood of about $25 million a year. Now, that's not a lot, compared to the size of the orders and markets and the pipeline that we have right now. But those can now be put into the contract manufacturing facilities, of which we already know who they are and where they're going to go.
Okay, so you've already had conversations.
Oh, yeah. I mean, these are planned,
nice.
Year or 2 in advance.
So from now on in, it's modular. You don't have to
those scale to the hundreds of millions of dollars of numbers. Now, the other consideration is you start to have your particular product lines, and then you need to now service those customers and stuff. So the rate of innovation, so we'll be focusing on. Let me put it this way: the 3XL drone that we've got out right now, it was designed very specifically to be a drone that can do about 100 different things. Right? It's a Swiss Army knife of drones. It can fit on, dozens and dozens of different payloads, right? So it's something that's supposed to, not go obsolete. It's kind of like the Humvee or the Jeep, if you will. You can always add on new parts onto it. And we very purposely chose that product first to go with so that it can scale for years and years. And then because as you get more and more customers, you've obviously got increasing costs to support your legacy products and stuff. So there's been years of planning on how we're going to scale this and then try to stay in front of that innovation. Because in this business, like most businesses in tech, innovation is absolutely key. But candidly right now, innovation is second most important. 2 years ago, innovation was most important. Now that we've got production coming online and those products are being commercialized, and I think we've really nailed, our customers are telling us anyway, that we really nailed the products that they needed to see come out. So we've met regulation where the market was with the product that we had to have. But innovation right now is actually secondary, and the most important thing is production. So nobody can produce enough right now in North America, right? Nobody can produce enough. So that's the key issue now for us, which is why we focus so hard on that.
But I love the fact you said that you've been planning on this. So we might see all these Draganfly modular facilities all over the world, the Western or Europe, or
you'll certainly see them in NATO type countries. India is going to be a big push for us. We're just getting pulled in there, overwhelmingly pulled in there, which is really exciting. Awesome. And you'll see some of the, we've got a couple of product announcements coming out this summer and a couple in Q4, but they're all planned for a roadmap that, tries to line up where regulatory is going to be and tries to line up where our customer demands are going to be. Draganfly's been around for 24 years. So every other drone manufacturer in North America has gone out of business. Save the last 4 or 5 years where a number of new ones have come to market. And the reason is this very pragmatic approach around, what the market will bear and where the market is actually at. So, the market potential 10 years ago was $20 billion. But, there wasn't regulatory framework for a $20 billion market to unfold. And so a lot of people rushed into the business, myself included, quite frankly. But thank goodness we had a very pragmatic operational team that was like, let's do contract manufacture. Let's just,
the hairs took off, they burned out, you tortoised it.
We just been, and so it's going to be a bit of that. It's a little bit of tortoise mentality, but it's a pretty big tortoise right now.
Yeah, that's a big one. Dan, we can talk for another hour.
You're amazing, George. Thank you I love it. Appreciate it.
It's so easy because look, we don't have a script, and even just by having just smart, intelligent discussion, look how much we've been able to give the shareholders in terms of the big picture.
Well, I mean, you do such a great job for shareholders, and ultimately that's the job, right? Is we're here to create shareholder value. So we appreciate what you do.
Just what you've done so far has been amazing. But now that we're getting a great look at the path a little bit, you've given us a little bit of insight without giving too much detail. I always say this, and I'm always right, because your revenues keep going up every year. If you were a company that said, George, you got big dreams, but your revenues are always flat, or you're not growing. Let's say Cam talks a lot, but he doesn't really deliver. But every year, your revenues keep. Last year did 7.5. Now you're saying production capability will be as high as 25 million. Not that you're giving a revenue projection, but now you've scaled up for that.
But the ramp after, because of that capacity, because we've got the visibility on the pipeline, we'll grow again this year.
But the fact that you're saying you have a reasonable belief as a CEO that you could be a multi-billion-dollar company in the coming years. Look, I know you don't say that lightly because you've already been a part of 3 winners.
Well, I know what it takes.
Right.
So that said, I'm a dreamer, right? So take it with a grain of salt, but I do know what it takes.
Pragmatism in your background.
It's hard. It's really hard to do it.
Well,
and
you make it look easy.
Man.
Sometimes I sit at home and I see these announcements come out and I say, but of course they got that. Of course Lufthansa have selected you guys to work together for marine rescue. Why wouldn't they? But the fact of the matter is,
it's really hard.
It's really hard, and you make it look easy, buddy. But
you're kind.
Thanks for taking the time with everybody.
Everything.
Congratulations.
I appreciate it, George. Thank you.
And I can't wait to have our little talk in a couple of weeks.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Look forward to it.
Continued success, and for everybody at home, thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed this. Make sure to ask your questions either on Twitter or the Draganfly forum on AGORACOM, because Cam and his team are always available, accessible. Take advantage. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.
Buddy.
We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.